It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Got a great show packed for you today. Part of our kit bag. We're going to cover 4 different topics this morning. One, the Obamacare vote that is upcoming in the House, and the statement from Ted Cruz, that he will filibuster in the Senate if necessary. We're going to get into the details of what that all means and what you can and perhaps should expect from that. We never know. It's like rolling the bones with these people, and so we're going to address that. But the time is up. Somebody has to do something about Obamacare, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the results of the failure of Obamacare that's already occurred, even though the thing hasn't even gone into effect. Second issue we're going to talk about is antidepressants and mass shootings. You know, antidepressants are a prescription for mass shootings. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to give you a list of an index of SSRI or serotonin reuptake inhibitor shootings or murders that have occurred directly tied to the use of antidepressants. Folks, the list is stunning and staggering. If you or any member of your family are involved or take any kind of antidepressant, I strongly encourage you to educate yourself about what you're taking, because I'm here to tell you that antidepressants are a dangerous, dangerous drug. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Our third segment is going to be the Benghazi walkout by the Democrats. Now, believe it or not, yesterday there was a hearing in reference to Benghazi, and no sooner did the hearing get to the point where the parents of the murdered Benghazi victims were going to speak about their children and request the end of the smoke and mirrors, so to speak. Literally, every Democrat in the room got up and walked out. Now, I heard one person trying to defend it by saying, well, you know, people flood in and out of these meetings all day long. They have votes to take. You want to know something? I don't really care. When the parent of a slain child is sitting in front of you and they're expecting you to, if nothing else, at least hear them out about the outrage of the death of their child, I think you have an obligation to sit there and hear that through. And the truth of the matter is, you know, Congress in 2011 passed, 300 bills, and administrative agencies passed 8,800. 8,800. So let's be honest, nothing these idiots do up in Congress and on Capitol Hill is really all that important. Not for nothing, but, I don't know. The whole thing just stuns me. Anyway, our fourth and final segment, we're going to explore an op-ed piece by Dr. Ben Carson. Now, if you don't know who Ben Carson is, I strongly encourage you to learn more after we have an opportunity to go through this particular episode this morning, because I believe that Dr. Ben Carson is perhaps one of the most valuable members that we have in our Patriot Party, if you will. And the reason I say that is because we have been looking for a long time now for an individual like Dr. Carson who would be able to stand up and take action when we see all around us the failures of every other organization out there to be able to restore and build our constitutional republic back into some semblance of at least a legal framework. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our topics this morning. Our first is the Obamacare vote, and the issues surrounding that, the House is set to vote on Obamacare today. And what they're essentially doing is there's two aspects to this. One, they are proposing within the framework of the vote that they're passing to replace Obamacare with a plan that extends these tax breaks to everybody in the United States, not just to special interests, not just to unions or special companies that have donated a lot of money, or not just to the people in Congress who actually, amazingly enough, got themselves a Benny and a waiver, but any American who has to buy their own insurance, whether they buy it through their company or whether they buy it through an exchange, would get a tax break. Now, the individuals can claim a $7,500 tax deduction against their income and their payroll taxes, regardless of what the cost of the insurance is. The second aspect is that, or for the family group, is a deduction of $20,000. So whether you are buying for yourself and you're young and you're single, or whether you are newly single, or whether you are a family, you would have a deduction. And that plan would also increase government funding for the high-risk pools. Now, predictably, Harry Reid came out, and Obama came out, and a whole bunch of other idiots came out, and immediately started screaming that, there is no negotiation on this point, blah, blah, blah. Well, and with all due respect, I got to say, I don't know who you think you all are to say that you're not going to negotiate on something which affects every American and 1/6 of our economy. Who the heck do you people think you are that you can say you're not going to negotiate with us, but you're going to negotiate with unions, you're going to negotiate with foreign governments, you're going to negotiate with Russia and Putin on Syria. But you're not going to discuss. It's not even open for discussion to negotiate with Americans. Where do you get off? Really? This is an issue which affects every single American, period, bar none. I don't care who you are. The rule is everybody's got to get covered, right? So therefore it affects everybody. And for you to sit there and say that you're not going to negotiate and then turn around and try to pin the blame on another party and say it's their fault that the government's going to get shut down, to me, that is beyond comprehension. Now, Cruz came right out as a member of the Senate, and he said he would do everything and anything possible to defund Obamacare. Immediately, a reporter in the audience said, will that include a filibuster? And he said yes. So it may incorporate a filibuster from Ted Cruz. And frankly, I don't really care anymore. I think it's time to pull the stops out and stick to our guns and say, this is it. We're not going to allow this to go down. Now, Cruz is one of the most vocal supporters of the Defund Obamacare concept. In fact, he's got a website out there, which I posted up on our Facebook yesterday and our website, called don'tfundit.com. .org. Don'tfundit.org. And there's 1.5 million signatures or something on there. I encourage you, by the way, to go visit it and sign on it. Don'tfundit.org. Him and Mike Lee have put that website together. And, you can ignore the pleas for money. These guys got more money than they possibly need. But you want to put your name on the list to say, I don't want this thing funded. That's the only way we're going to beat it, folks, is to not fund it. Realistically, there's only one methodology that we can do to defeat this thing, and that is to not fund it, simply. And the other alternative, of course, is to get everybody out of there and change the House and the Senate, make sure that both of them are Republican-controlled next year or independent-controlled, so that we can completely repeal the entire mess. And I'm no party guy. So don't take that as an excuse to go and vote for a Republican. I would just as soon to see you vote for a constitutional or libertarian candidate, because at least they'll stand on our side on that issue. So don't let that sway you into saying, oh, my goodness, I've got to do the lesser of two evils choice. I'm tired of hearing that nonsense. Stop that way of thinking. It's not productive. End the party system by refusing to play. So Harry Reid Cruz came out and he made a statement that Harry Reid will no doubt try to strip the defund language from the continuing resolution, and right now he likely has the votes to do so. At that point, House Republicans must stand firm, hold their ground, and continue to listen to the American people. Well, immediately all the House Republicans came out and started blasting him for refusing to fight, waving the white flag of surrender. I don't see it that way. I see Ted Cruz as a realist, and he's stating the facts. He's right. Harry Reid will no doubt strip the defund language from the continuing resolution, and he does have the votes to do it. So let's not pretend and act here like, we can live in some kind of universe of our own devising. The truth of the matter is, Harry Reid, traitor that he is going to strip any kind of defund language out of the continuing resolution to fund government. And the way that the House wants to do it is basically send up a budget or a continuing resolution that funds everything except health care. 100% of everything would be covered with one exception, and that is health care itself. They want to give Obama and Reid no excuse to say, well, you didn't fund the military, or you didn't fund Social Security, or you didn't fund some other boondoggle project. So by approving everything in a continuing resolution, a 100% of funding of everything except Obamacare, if it does come to a vote, then only Reid and only Obama are responsible for the outcome. If it passes the Senate, then the president would have to veto it, and he's already said he would. And if he does that, then he does not have the ability to turn around and say, you guys are guilty. He's the one who vetoes. That's it. So, strategically speaking, and frankly, I'm tired of the concept of, strategizing. I mean, what's wrong with just doing what's right for America? And the truth is, we know what's right for America. First of all, the polls out there are massive. The numbers out there are stunning about how many people want. In fact, you want to know something? 51% in a Rasmussen poll the other day came out and said that they would be willing to shut down the government to defund Obamacare. Now, that's 51% who are actually willing to shut it down. We're not talking about people who are concerned, who are expressing the fact that, well, maybe we don't have to go to a shutdown, but we still have to kill it. I mean, 51% are actually willing to go to the nuclear option of shutting government down in order to get rid of it. So that ought to tell you something. So what we have is a scenario where the system is basically coming apart. It's coming off the wheels. And what we do know is that employers in vast numbers are dumping people off of their health care coverage. Now, Boeing has announced that they've got problems. Almost every food chain in the nation has announced they're cutting. And not only that, but they're knocking most of their full-time employees back up underneath the 30-hour limit so that they can classify them as part-time employees and thereby avoid the necessity of having to deal with Obamacare. They're tossing the employees out into the exchanges and the pools. The system isn't ready. They don't know what they're going to do. They have no security in place. The doctors are saying, we're just all going to retire because you guys have made such a mess of this thing that we can't even realistically continue in operation. The federal government is twisting doctors' arms to turn them all into, for all intents and purposes, de facto informants. The data hub itself has zero security on it. They can't even test it until the day before it's supposed to go live. Really? You mean to tell me you're going to make 315 million Americans fill out applications in 2 months and you guys haven't even tested the security capabilities yet? Why don't you take the NSA and retask them from spying on Americans to fixing the data hub? I mean, realistically, it's ridiculous. But the problem that we have is that it is affecting employment in the United States. IBM has announced that they are kicking 110,000 retirees off their health insurance program. 110,000, folks. Now, what that means to you is that all those people who were getting health care as a result of their tenure at IBM are now going to, and because they're all retired, most of them, because of income, regardless of how much money they've got socked away in the bank and how much money they're living on, they're going to fall up underneath government subsidies. So what used to be 110,000 people that were taking care of themselves are now going to be 110,000 people that we've all got to kick in for. Not to mention the fact that there are literally tens of millions of people who are being cut back below a 30-hour work week, and in addition to that, are being forced off of their roles of health care for their companies, even if they're kept on as full-time. So, we're in a position where Home Depot, by the way, came out the other day and announced they're dumping 20,000 employees onto the Obamacare exchange. So this isn't like, a once-in-a-while thing. Every once in a while, a company comes up and says, hey, we can't handle it. Most companies are saying we can no longer deal with the health care issue. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dump our employees onto the Obamacare exchange. And we're going to pay the fine because it's cheaper for us to do that than to try to implement layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy within our own organizations and our own companies to try to figure out how to do it, what to do, how much is it going to cost, who gets it, who doesn't. I mean, it's just a nightmare. So their attitude is real simple. How much does it cost us to get rid of the problem? Oh, okay, it's only a couple $1,000s a year. Case closed, hands washed, let's move on. Board meeting in 5 minutes. That's how business works, not government. You can add Home Depot to this list, and it's growing every day. This list of companies that are bailing on Obamacare are just, every supermarket chain, every fast food chain. I mean, every major employer in the United States, Caterpillar. I mean, we're talking about huge companies that employ literally, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of employees. And they're kicking them all off the rolls of their own company-funded health care and into the Obamacare mandated exchanges. Now, from their perspective, it makes sense because it's a business decision that they have to make. And the fine for them is a couple of grand. That's cheaper than it costs them to give the employees health care today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real crime here, the real sin. Because they knew in Congress, long before Obamacare was ever even passed, that if they made the fine low enough, this is what the end result would be. I mean, they've got, $1 trillion worth of high-speed computers to model these types of scenarios. So all they had to do was plug in the right numbers and say, okay, what's the threshold by which we can penalize a company where they will gladly pay us to get rid of their problem and won't fight us too much, while simultaneously forcing everybody into the government exchange, which helps us because now we've got this influx of trillions of dollars or billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars of premiums. That's the game, folks. Essentially what they're doing is they are working to knock the insurance industry out of the healthcare game. They're achieving their goal of universal health care, nationalized health care, by simply putting in place the right patterns to make the cow go down the chute. That's really what it comes down to. They're funneling everybody into these exchanges, and they're putting in place the procedures and the methodologies necessary to get corporations to say, let's just get rid of the healthcare problem, pay the fine, and write it off as a loss. And corporations will do that. Unlike the government, corporations, when they see something is no longer profitable or no longer it's worth the money just to get rid of the headache, they do that. Because they're looking at the long term. Government is not. They're looking at what do we have to do to either achieve our agenda or get reelected. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem. Government will never run like a business because the CEO is not worried about getting reelected. The board members aren't worried about getting reelected. They're worrying about whether or not they can stand up in front of their investors and say, we've done a good job for you. Congress people stand up in front of you and say they did a good job for you, but you know that they're lying through their teeth. You see, but in a corporation scenario, it's impossible to say that because the bottom line shows it. The stock price shows it. The return on investment exposes their lie. How do you prove that Congress is lying? You can't. So, no matter what they claim, they can literally claim it with impunity, knowing that there's no way that you can prove them wrong. The whole thing is such a mess. It really is. The Americans who are going to lose their employer-based coverage are not permitted to go without insurance. So when they get kicked off their corporations' rolls, they've got to go to the exchange. There's nowhere else to go. I suppose they could try to buy health care individually. They won't be able to do that because insurance companies are not going to take individuals anymore. They're going to say, well, you got to go through the exchange in order to buy it. We're a member of the exchange. You got to go to your state's exchange. So, in fact, Daily Caller came out and said, the ACA mandates that individuals who do not have coverage through their employers must purchase it on a government-run insurance exchange, which requires people to buy insurance for a government-designed set of healthcare services, including services promoted by corporate lobbies. The insurance packages can be more expensive than sought by the workers previously, especially younger workers, but the extra costs are partially offset by subsidies from other taxpayers. This is a shameful game that's being played on us. And the truth is that, I get the problem of shutting down government. Frankly, I'm so anti-government at this point. I got to control myself from saying just shut the whole mess down and let's not deal with it. But on the flip side, I understand we still have a country to run. We still have troops to pay. We still have logistics to handle for our guys that are over in Afghanistan and over in Iraq here, even though they tell us there aren't over there in Iraq. We've still got the logistics of taking care of roads and bridges and paying for schools and things like that. But you see, again, all of this stuff really shouldn't be federal anyway, or not all of it, but some portions of it. Schools shouldn't be coming out of the federal budget. Why are we sending money to the federal government from your state? Let's say you live in Florida, or you live in Maine. So why is it that Maine, taxes are collected from Maine, go to the federal government, and then come back to Maine with a slice taken off the top for the federal bureaucracy? Really? I mean, why do we need the middleman of the federal government in our education systems? Let schools in the states be run by the states. And that way, quite frankly, if a state's schools suck, people will either fix it themselves within their state or they'll move to a state where the schools are good. That's called competition. We can't have that, of course, because government won't allow competition, especially to government. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about these antidepressants and SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, how antidepressants are a prescription for mass shootings. And I got to tell you, folks, this is some really ugly stuff here. So stick with us. We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll go over all the details there. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can find us at facebook.com/americasvoicenow. And you can also find this and every other program that we do on YouTube at youtube.com/americasvoicenow. Monday, we'll be starting on our new station at KUNQ 99.3 in South Central Missouri. If you're in that region, you'll be able to find us. When we come back, I'm going to talk to you quickly about the ham radio course that's set up for tomorrow morning. Make sure that you're there if you're in a local area, and we'll educate you on that. We'll be right back.